So the topic for today's discussion is vendor privileged access management. And so we're going to start in our privileged remote access slash login console. I'm logged in as an administrator. And we're going to take a look at a couple of the different vendor groups that I have access to manage. So I've got this Avengers initiative. I'm a Marvel guy, and then I have this like database vendor group as well. But those vendor groups are going to represent, the various different vendors that you might have access in your environment. This can be in both the IT space as well as the OT space. So really, we support either use case rather easily within Privileged Remote Access. If we come down here, we have our vendor portal that you can customize. I've largely left this, for the most part, pretty vanilla. The big difference there, I threw in the Avengers symbol. This is to represent here my a way to enlist the Avengers into to access Shield resources is kind of the idea here for my lab environment. And so those users will sign up. The way that we're kind of deriving the users is we need to have a unique email address for that user. And if we come back here to the portal, where the expectation should be that they're going to be coming from a trusted domain. So if the vendor is, BlackRock or Siemens or, something, to that nature, right? We would expect it to be, vendor.com or vendor.io or whatever their kind of email address is formatted at. And that way we're protecting spam from coming into the vendor portal. And once they get approved by the vendor approver, up here at the top I have my different vendor approvers. I've got Karen listed here twice, probably because one is the actual 80 user, the other one being like the SAML user. But essentially the same person here, and we can and probably ought to, in most cases, allow for these kind of sponsors to do the approval for those users. We can, enlist, the IT or OT folks to be the approvers for them. Really, this could be really any user or team inside of PRA that exists. I've got a number of different users that are pending action, that are expired, that have been added in at some point, or the request for access has expired. If I wanted to give Bruce access, I could reactivate the account. And then down below, right, I've got the the Hulk added in. Let's go ahead and I'd like to demo with Loki, just pure chaos. You can see all the different fields listed here, right, that we can add in. We do support passwordless authentication. We can have reports to keep track of that. The other good thing I'd like to note is that the advantage of doing this is I can add these accounts into the environment and still enforce multi-factor authentication. A lot of times vendors are accessing the environment using a shared account. The problem with shared accounts is a lot of times, can't really enforce that MFA. Yeah, there might be like an OTP associated with it, but it's being shared in like a shared vault. And I mean, are you really validating that the user that's actually logging in is actually who they say they are? You're really only trusting that password there. So here we're avoiding that, right? The user that's authenticated is who they say they are, and we're validating that with the MFA. All right, and all of this is driven by our group policy. That's not to be confused with what Windows or Microsoft calls a group policy. These are a policy that we're applying to that vendor group. Here at the top, you can see that I'm requiring that they use MFA. And if I go into my access permissions, where I've kind of denoted what the users can do, from a session perspective, and then if we get down in here, this is my session policy. So from a session policy, I'm not being too strict with this vendor group, right? I'm allowing access to the clipboard in both directions. I am restricting upload to just upload access. I'm restricting basically a pivot tool here with the command shell, not allowing the users to kind of jump from Windows session or from a one SSH session to another, denying registry access, can scripts. So why don't I log in as a user and I'll actually show this. So we'll use Loki here. Now this is of course assuming that the user's already kind of authenticated once before and downloaded this access console. There is of course the web version as well, which I can give a taste of here in just a moment. Loki. Putting in my MFA prompt. All right. And so here are all the different things that my user has access to. We can put in, additional gates as well. So for example, I have this approval workflow for this particular jump item, and I would need to have access or this access approved before I can get into it. And we can adjust this here so I can say, yeah, I just really need access here for like 25 minutes. Now the request here shows below it's yellow, it's pending. In this case, it's all driven really via email. You can approve via the Access Console as well, but what I'll be showing here is the approval workflow directly from email. This is what it looks like. It's coming to me, right, for demo purposes. It's really all driven by me. I'll go ahead and respond to this request. Put in the fun, hey, don't break anything comment. Approve the access. And it's all relatively quick and easy. This can be done, as I'm showing you here, on desktop, but also does work in a mobile capacity. I know that's often a use case. And down below, I can see here, oh yes, authorization has been approved. I've got the green check mark to go. My user Loki has also received an email in their inbox that also lets me know that it's approved. And once I start the session, it'll give me the comment from the approver, and the timer is going to start going. Now I do have options here. It's one of the reasons why I like to show this from the thick client, the Access Console, as opposed to the web. I can use remote tools. So if I open up Remote Desktop Client here, this is actually going to launch kind of my preferred RDP client, in this case being Royal TS. It could be really anything. There's actually, if I go back here to the Access Console for just a second, there are options here. This Windows RDP is like a multi-mon if I wanted to show or do an RDP session with multiple monitors. We could really build any kind of external tool in that connection. In this case, I'm demoing the Royal TS. The nice benefit of using Royal TS is that get these different command tasks. I think all of the different kind of remote desktop managers that are out there have their own perks, but it is, if you have it and you want to use it, no reason why you can't. The way that this is essentially working is I've created a tunnel. There's a tunnel from my machine, the client, the Access Console, to the jump point on the back end that serves as our proxy server. And so all of the traffic is being funneled to that jump point, and the jump point is kind of carrying the rest of the way to the target system on the back end, which is all great. We get a nice recorded session out of it, and the end user gets to access a remote resource that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. And all with that approval workflow, we've got the trace of who did the approval, when that happened, the actual access that was used. I injected a credential into the session, and the vendor had no idea, has no idea what that vendor account actually is. So we're all great and gravy. So that was with a Windows RDP session. I can also do something similar on the Linux side as well. So let's get it connected here to my Oracle box. I'll use my SSH user here. So this is actually a short-term lived certificate that I'm using, and I'm curious what my Putty is my default SSH handler here. So what's awesome about this is that this certificate will exist for the duration of the session, and once the session ends, that cert will be expired, and really doesn't get much more secure or just in time, truthfully. And yeah, so we can leverage in our EPM for Linux or EPM for Unix and Linux on-prem. Either way, and with that, replace sudo and really kind of list out just what commands the user can run. Looks like I'm having challenges connecting into my policy server, as the focus of this video is not so much on the EPM Linux. We'll just kind of proceed on. But certainly, as you can see here, my cache policy is working. So if I needed to escalate into a root shell, which I just did, certainly still can do so, and can require MFA if I wanted to, or link it into like a ticketing system, get some sort of approval before getting the actual elevated root shell. And then from here, I've got my advanced control and audit, so I can stop the addition of groups and users, as you show here, right? So I'm not getting around policy by adding someone into a group that wheels commonly associated with sudoers policies, right? That gives you the ability to run a lot of commands. So I'm stopping the addition of the user. I'm stopping the addition of that user to a group. And we could really control. So although we're in a root shell, right? And as you can see here, right? You didn't need to pass in like some sort of like elevating commands. I am root, but there's those additional guardrails that are put in place by the fact that I'm in the shell with our advanced control and audit. So very, very, very powerful stuff. If we get back into again, this works the exact same way, right? There's an SSH tunnel that I've created. Right now, I'm using WinSCP, so if I needed to like transfer files from my machine over to the the other box, I very well could do so rather easily, or the vice versa. No need to save that. So I've pulled up the web console with my admin user that I was using earlier. That's my FIDO2 user here. And what I'm going to quickly do is I update the policy that's in here. Oh, no need, right? I have an MFA jump policy applied here for my admin Okta. If I go back to my thick client, we will do get a nice notification letting me know that the session's going to end here in like 15 minutes. All right, so in order to jump into the Okta web jump, I have to validate I am who I say I am, just because this is super important. And again, this is just a silly example that I'm using in my own demo environment to show, one, yeah, we can do the web jump, but also for whatever reason, let's pretend that Loki is one of the Okta consultants that I've brought in, but I want to validate that they are who they say they are. And here you can get this nice, hey, yeah, actually you need to have access in here. Okta verify. Yep, this must be a new thing that I set up. Scan. Awesome. All right. Fan-freaking-tastic. All right. And here we go. I'm logged in. Oh, that's because it's literally my account. Yeah. All right. Had to complete the enrollment, right? And so did MFA at the front door to get access in, and then there was even additional MFA. But I could set that MFA policy really on any of these items. and there's no jump policy that's set here. But for really anything, I could do that. We could do the approval workflow, and I believe I also have the ability, or have set up in here, a notification. No, not a problem. We'll quickly change that. So let's say in order to get into this jump client, you have to, we're going to notify the powers that be. So come back here to my SCCM. You'll now see that reflected in here. Jump policy notification. Let's go ahead and jump. All right, and I'm here. And just again to show you, credential injection, slightly different than RDP or SSH. It happens really before we get into the session, where the jump client allows you to get connected to the machine, kind of running as a service, and then you're presented with the ability to do the credential injection. So there we go. Passing in a cred, at no point am I ever shown what that credential actually happens to be. But I'm logged in. All of this is tracked, just like anything that's done in PRA is. It's probably a good time to transition to talking about session recordings, the auditing and reporting that is in privileged remote access. So now that all of those sessions have been closed, if I do a show report, it's going to show me all those sessions that I ran as Loki, the user here. If I wanted to see the actual full-blown session recording, it takes it a minute for it to load, but it'll give me the ability to do that. I will also see the kind of the transcript of what happened there. If I just wanted to see the this is where SSH is awesome, right? I can see everything that we did on that Oracle Linux based session, including kind of the elevation commands or attempt to, add a user as a root user in that root shell. Good stuff. There's even the recording here from the web-based jump and that session there. As far as the vendor activity, that will appear once our reporting job on the back end runs.